Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Welcome to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. This is your host, Steve Fielder, coming at you one more time. And we're so happy today to be able to record this podcast with a fellow that I've wanted to get up with for a long time. I see him about daily on social media. I've known of him for many, many years. I've seen his name and his picture in the magazines with his dogs, and he likes those Treeing Walker dogs. Maybe he'll tell us about some other breeds that he's had. But I'm always glad to talk to anybody from the great state of Kentucky, because that's where my grandparents on my mother's side came from. And I've had a lot of great times in Kentucky that we'll talk about as we go along. But I'm real pleased to welcome to the mic today Mr. Whitey Marshall. How you doing, Whitey?
Doing good, Steve. How are you today?
Man, I am just great. I really am, and just very pleased that you took time from your busy schedule. And I know that, I don't know how old you are, but I imagine that you're retired from a regular job. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been retired quite a few years, Steve. I'm 70 years old. I'm getting to be one of the old men.
Well, I still got you by 5 years on the wrong side of 70.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought you were somewhere there in that range. I see that there's a lot of white in that beard. How'd you get the nickname Whitey?
My hair was always been white like that, and I had an uncle called Cotton, so they couldn't call me Cotton, so everybody nicknamed me Whitey. I got you.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about your background before we get into talking coon dogs, and this is a coon hunting podcast, and most people listen to it for that reason, because they're interested in hearing what other people have to say about the sport. And we in the coon hunting world, we've always enjoyed sitting around talking, whether it's at the clubhouse or around a campfire or on the tailgate or wherever. And of course, spend a lot. My wife tells me I spend way too much time on the telephone talking to coon hunters, but it's something that I enjoy a lot. But tell me about where you were born, Whitey.
I was born right here within a few miles where I live right now, Steve. I've been here practically all my life. Great little Carter County, Kentucky, little town, racing real close here. And I was born in the hospital right here in Grayson. It's no longer here. But I've been fortunate to be raised right here, and all my brothers and sisters, we're all within 5 minutes of Dad, so that's a rarity anymore, but I've been blessed.
Well, you certainly have in that regard. And, I have lost both of my parents, but if I'm understanding right, your father's still living?
Yes, I was over mowing his grass today, and he's right there with me. He'll be 90 in October.
Oh, that's
he's
awesome.
Right on that rider today with me, and while I was push mowing, I'm privileged to still have him. I lost my mother about 6 years ago.
I see. Well, that's the unfortunate thing about living a good long life, is that we do lose, our parents. I just recently lost my mother. And God bless her, she lived to be 100 years and 11 days. And she was blessed with a long life. My dad died back in 2006, and he was 88. But, I'm just glad to hear that for sure. Are you married?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's soon to be 53 years.
53 years. Is she a Kentucky girl, too?
Oh, yeah. She was a high school sweetheart.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm married to my high school sweetheart, but we didn't get around to it until later in life. But that's great. Well, okay. So there in the part of Kentucky that you live in, what's the terrain like? What's the country like there?
We're in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and ours is not mountains. You get on up hour or so above me, you're in Pike County where the mountains is, and but we've got some steep hills, and which I really enjoy the hills myself. It kind of breaks up the terrain and everything.
Oh, yeah. I miss the mountains. I was born in southern West Virginia, and, I always enjoy when I can get back to the mountains. Now, my grandparents were, I believe, from Floyd County, Kentucky. Is that right? Would that be up around Paintsville and Van Leer and all? Is that Floyd, or what county would that be? Do you know?
That'd be in Floyd County.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know we always said they were kind of from Loretta Lynn country as a point of reference, because she was born. The song, the famous song she's had about her daddy working all night in the Van Leer coal mines. So, yeah, my grandfather was a coal miner for many years. My dad was a farm boy from Tennessee. But okay, so you were born there near where you are now. You went to school there. Then what did you do for your life's work, Whitey?
I've been a carpenter all my since I've come out of service, Steve. I got drafted and already was married and had a child, and I got drafted and served my time in Vietnam, which I was proud to do and would do it again. And then when I come home, I took project transition. I took carpentry and that is what I stayed with, and it blessed me.
Well, that's awesome. Now, I was in the Air Force during the Vietnam era, but I was stationed in Japan. A year of training in Texas and 3 years in Japan in a support role for the war. But when did you get out, Whitey?
I got out in 73.
Well, you and I are right on the money on that. Did you go in 69 then?
No, I got drafted in 71. And
okay.
They put me, I guess I messed up and I like the squirrel hunt and stuff, so they put me in infantry. I guess I made a big mistake. But I was in the jungle. I was in the jungle for a year. I walked point for 6 months, and then I carried a 60 machine gun for 6 months. And
yeah, you were in the thick of it for sure then, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Well, I have, there's names on that wall of schoolmates of mine. Have a very soft spot in my heart, a lot of pride, but a lot of sadness too for the schoolmates and all that I lost during that war. I think anybody that didn't grow up or weren't out of draft age or military age or whatever during that time doesn't really have any idea what that was all about and what a commitment it took. And it wasn't an easy time at all, but I'm like you. I definitely am proud of my military service. I did stay 4 years. I was drafted, but instead of taking the draft, I went ahead and enlisted in the Air Force because I'd had 3 cousins that had already gone in the Air Force right out of high school. So, but, I know I think I saw something on Facebook the other day. You posted about the way you guys rode those helicopters. You weren't worried about falling out, were you?
No, you couldn't fall out. First time I got on, I thought I was going to fall out, but you could. They just it would hold you right in there.
I got you. Well, thank goodness you survived all that, and I'm proud of your military service, and I thank you for it, and I know that the nation is too. Well, at what point along the way did you get involved in coon dogs?
It was in 1981. I had it. I played bluegrass for quite a few years there. And I had
there's another thing I guess I didn't know about you. We definitely got to talk about that too. But go right ahead.
The banjo picker that I had at that time, he had coon dogs, and we were at his place one evening, and he was going to go coon hunting. And I made a mistake and went with him, and he had a half plot and half cur dog, and we went up and turned him loose, and he run a track, and he come treed, and I was hooked.
That's all it took, huh?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Well, plots and curs, that's kind of my background. Well, my dad grew up with cur dogs on the farm in Tennessee. So when I was a young man, or a kid really, I heard all kinds of tales about my dad and his brothers hunting with the cur dogs in the country there in west of Nashville in Middle Tennessee. So, but then when Dad, in 1954, he kind of got the bear hunting bug there in West Virginia. He married my mother, who was born in West Virginia, and that's how, they settled back there after the war. He was in World War II and went in 1939 and didn't get out until, I think it was September of 1945. And she was working in Detroit, and they got married there and then moved down back home for her to West Virginia, and that's where I was raised. But anyway, I always heard those tales of hunting with the cur dogs, old Pat and Mike especially. And then when he decided to get into bear hunting, he got some plots, and so our background's a little bit alike there, I guess, in that regard. About how old were you then when you got that first experience?
Let's see, 51 to 81, so I've been about 30, I guess, Steve.
I got you. Well, that's a little later than I did. Of course, my dad was involved, with dogs, and I was his shadow when I was a kid. Did your dad ever get into it at all?
No, Dad was raised in a generation that all he knew was to work and go to church, and he just never did get into hunting. He done a little bit of squirrel hunting and stuff like that without a dog, but Dad never did. He's never been coon hunting with me at all.
I guess it's kind of for a person that doesn't do it and doesn't understand why anybody else would do it, probably. It's probably a mystery to them, but I can't remember a time in my experience when there wasn't dogs, tied out back or in a kennel in the back. Well, so then how'd you progress down that coon hunting trail from there, from that first experience?
Well, we were working at a brickyard, local brickyard down here, banjo picker, and that's how I met him. And there was another gentleman hunting there that hunted. He had a blue tick female. And after I hunted with it that night, I decided I wanted a dog, so I bought a little blue tick dog called Maggie. And she was just a grade dog, and I got hunting hunts back whenever, you had several grade dogs there. Mm-hmm. But I got a hankering that I wanted a registered dog. And I bought a dog called Tree Singing Chief. He had just been high-scoring walker dog in UKC World Hunt. Mm-hmm. And I purchased him, and from then, been hooked walkers ever since.
Well, you and the majority of coon hunters around the country, of course, favor the walker dog, and it's hard to argue with the record, that's for sure. My first experience in night hunting, and we'll talk about that, came at Georgetown, Kentucky. Went to plot days with my dad. Had a pretty good dog there, a plot dog. Don't remember how old he was at that time, but I'm thinking about 3 years old. And I hunted on, I've told this story on podcasts before, on one of the farms out there at, I can't even think of the name of it right now, but the dog trailed a coon through a culvert under the interstate. Or under the parkway there. I don't know if I think it's the interstate right there. But anyway, that was my first experience. And I couldn't believe coming out of West Virginia, those bluegrass horse farms that we hunted on. That was a whole lot different than the kind of hunting that I was used to. Well, I wanted to kind of get into how you got involved in competition hunting.
Well, I took the chief dog, and I went to Kentucky State Championship in 1982, and got I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but anyway, I won the Kentucky State Championship that year, and that really got the far underneath me, and I went from there. I had a little dog called Murdoch, and I made him a Grand Night, made both of them Grand Nights, and then in 91, I bought a little female called Ruby. She was off a Deanwood Drifter.
Oh yeah.
And I got my back hurt on the job and had a back operation. And I had how I got Ruby, I had a dog out of some of the blood that Chief and him was out of, and I felt that I needed to sell him because he was too nice of a hound, and I traded him into Spider Web, and that's how I got the female, and that's what got me really, when my back got better, and that really got me on the road. Then I started pushing pretty hard in it.
I see. Now, what was the breeding background on those hounds?
Okay, Chief Dog was out of Carolina Casey. You've heard of Carolina Casey, I'm sure, and back through the years.
Oh yeah.
And Sid Sturt, he don't live too far from me. Sid had that blood, and then Murdoch dog was Randy Blevins had a little dog called Jack, which was out of that dog, and I held on to that blood, and then it progressed from then, and in '96. I decided I might want to get into the stud dog business and start raising pups because my work kept me from really traveling in competition hunting big time. And I got a host of Joe House and Tom Bates. And I bought Cook's Raider, which was already established. Tom already had him established. Grand Night champion dog, and he was off old lawyer.
Yep.
And that got me into the breeding, and I've been blessed over the years in my breeding program.
So have you kind of held on to that old breeding down through the years, or have you gotten away from it now?
No, I still got it in my pedigree. Some of the hounds that I've got now, Steve, I've got back 7 generations that I've owned, you know, and built this up, and it's worked out real good for me. And
well, I know you. Yes, go ahead. Well, I said, I know you've got a good reputation down through the years of being a good dog man and having good hounds. And so, you know, that's, I guess, what we try to tell these people that get into the sport first thing. You know, a lot of times people get, I got a registered dog here. I'll get me a female. I'll raise pups. I'll make money. But it's not quite that easy, is it?
It's nowhere near that easy. My breeding program, Steve, I don't go for the one-hit wonders. I study my pedigrees, and I try to get my female. My part of it is more part of it than the male dog is, and I try to get a family of dogs. I just don't, if the majority of the litter is good, that's what I go after and try to keep blended into my blood.
Well, I would certainly say that I agree with everything you're saying right there. I believe in dogs coming from a good, strong family of dogs, and that was when I was breeding plots, and my dad was back years ago, and we always tried to do that, stay within the family line, outcross occasionally, but always bring it right back into that family if we could, if we were happy with it. But breeding dogs is, it's not an exact science, but at the same time, there are things that you can do to improve your odds, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. Joe House told me one time that he said, I kind of looked up to Joe because he was awful good at breeding, and Joe told me that when people start about these proven crosses, there's no such thing. He said there's no two kids alike, and there's not going to be no two dogs alike.
He was a wise man, Whitey, and I guess maybe I probably heard that somewhere along the line passed down from Joe, but I've always tried to hold to that myself. But, a lot of times you see things in ads and you see people say things and you just sit back and I found it's wise not to comment a lot of times. But when they start, there's a couple things that always amused me in guys talking about dogs. They'll say, I bred dog A to dog B, and that ought to be a real good cross. Well, yeah, it ought to be. All of them ought to be good. But until you do it and see how it turns out, you don't know. And then going along right with what you said just now that Joe told you about, proven crosses, I've never believed in that because I've seen too many times repeat breedings of the same cross that didn't turn out at all like the first time. So
that's for sure. There's no proving. You just don't know how the genes at that time is going to line up. Seem like it should happen, but it don't happen.
Right. If there was just a manual here, go do step A and then B, and the result will be C, and they'll all be great. Well, it wouldn't be much fun if it's that way, I guess, anyway, was it? Would it?
Yeah. No. Everybody would be hunting the same breed of dogs if that was the case.
Yeah, that's for sure. They'd all be the same. It'd be kind of like NASCAR racing now, in my opinion. I liked when they talk about all this parody and everything. I liked it when they were out there, rubbing paint, and it was all about, who was the best, who had the best equipment, who was the best prepared. But now I think the cars are all about the same. Well, so many questions I have for you. First of all, what would be a typical night hunt there where you live? What kind of terrain would we turn loose? Where would we go? You don't have to tell me your spots, but I mean just the type of terrain you've got to hunt there.
Well, right here where we live, Steve. We're in, like I say, we're in the hills and stuff, and you turn dogs loose here, and by the time you get to them, and you don't get all the turnout you do like going to Ohio. I make several trips up there and enjoy it. The older I get, the more the flat country is nicer for me. But you get out here in these hills here, and you tree a couple, 3 coon a night. It's by that time it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. By the time you get everything rounded up, and we've got coons here, but it takes a dog that's got the heart and the czar to hunt these hollers out and find them and tree them. And time we walk to them, it takes us a while.
Well, I imagine, and that's the one thing that over the years, the last 10 years or so, about 12, I guess, I've been going to Arkansas because it's flat and the woods are open, and it's so much more enjoyable for a guy my age. And of course, we hunt a lot off the four-wheelers and side-by-sides and whatnot. Off the trails, but you still have to walk to the dogs when they tree. And boy, I tell you, that becomes pretty important. I know when I got the cabin in the mountains of North Carolina, there was a few coon around there, and I could walk or ride my four-wheeler from the house. But if the dog treed, I was either going to walk straight up to him or straight off to him. And if I walked off, I was going to have to walk back. So... Man, these old wobbly knees just don't handle that kind of terrain very, very well. Okay, well, what type of dog do you like in a walker dog, Whitey?
I'm probably different from a lot of people, Steve. I like a dog. When a dog trees, I want to have a coon, and they've got to hunt good by themselves because I'm not able to handle 2 or 3 dogs at a time in these hills. I want a dog, when I cut him, I want him to go and know what his business is. And I like a dog that can run a track. But that is by being accurate. When you get there, he's got a coon. And if they can't do that, they don't live here very long, and I don't breed that kind.
Well, you like a dog that opens a fair amount on the ground. What about that?
Yeah, I prefer it, but I have had good dogs that would just hit here and there, and with all and that type of dog seems to be just naturally accurate to me more than an open dog is.
Well, there's a lot of questions, that coon hunters get into and talk about layup dogs versus the ambush dog that seems to be real popular today in the night hunts, especially in these high-dollar entry hunts and all. And it seems that the dogs are always, treed at the 4 points of the compass and all of them in there deep. any thoughts about that? I mean, what do you consider a good layup dog?
That is something, Steve, that's is getting to be a rarity in this country. Occasionally we'll get one ourselves that can do it, but they're farther in between. Seem like I think they are. The breeding and stuff has got more, like you say, wanting to ambush them, but a layup dog will just flat make you look silly if you don't watch them. They'll be treeing coons while the other dogs never know they're in the world.
Well, I witnessed that so many times up in Michigan. I was fortunate to live up there for 22 years. And, of course, we had good coon crop up there, a lot of coons. But the coons didn't move every night. That's one thing I think people forget about. You live in coon country, that don't mean they're moving every night. But I have seen and have had the opportunity to own a few what I would consider real good layup dogs. And these were dogs that could find a coon laying up in a tree where there was no track on the ground. And the boys up north, they always talk about the coons up there sleeping in a fork, when the dog treat them. But I think a lot of the coons that get treed today are just, as we said, ambushed. The dog hunts hard and wide and runs up on the coon. Coon goes right up the tree. The percentage of seeing that coon and scoring him is a lot higher. And I can understand why they hunt a dog like that. But when I was a kid, we used to kind of look down on the guys that hunted silent trailers. And they'd catch coons, and they'd say, well, hunting in these cliffs and all these den trees and all, we want a dog that's got to be able to tree that coon on the outside. But I've always liked a good trail dog, not a dog that stands on its head, but I do like a good trail dog. I just like to listen to the hounds. I think that's been my primary enjoyment with coon hunting. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm like you. I like to sit there and listen to them work a track up and like I say, get through the country and when we straight have the meat.
Well, that accuracy is everything to me, and I never experienced that too much, any problem with that up through the years. And then just, within the last couple of dogs that I've had, I've seen where they miss more than I like, What do you... Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the kind of dogs that I stay away from, and try to, I got a female down here out of my Dan dog that every win she had but one was with the leaves off, and that was her strong point. She wasn't nothing fancy or anything like that, but when you cut her and she opened and she treed, you're going to score it. It's not going to be a grab a tree or anything like that, and that's how I finished her.
Well, I hunted a lot by myself in Michigan, and I always enjoyed the fact that I knew, this is the way I felt. When I get to that tree, I'll shoot that coon out if I can find him. It'll be up to me to find him, but he's there. I never worried about him being there. Sometimes I worried, and as I started getting a little older, my eyes weren't quite as good. And, of course, we didn't have thermal imager scopes and things like that back in that day. But yeah, you just kind of knew, that the dog. We had an expression, I know you've heard it probably a lot of times, about a lying coon dog, and it couldn't be tolerated, Yep.
And
well,
they got breeding these dogs. It was hard, quick tree dogs that, and a lot of these dogs you see when the leaves was on the trees, but you let the leaves fall off and you didn't see them at the hunts anymore around here. I don't know how it's been where you.
Many of the time I've heard guys say, "Man, I can't wait to the leaves get on with this dog. Man, I can score a lot." And that, of course, with the advent of the money hunts and so forth, the ability to win on circle points or least minus or whatever kind of changed that game, because before we had to show the coon, and I don't know, things change, and I try not to be the guy that's always criticizing the way things are going now. My wife tells me all the time when I talk about rap music, and she says, well, our parents didn't understand our music either. I said, yeah, but I think it was a little easier to understand than this. But, yeah, times change for sure. Well, tell me something about the dogs that you're hunting now. I mean, what do you got? I know when I asked you about coming on the podcast, you said you had 3 Grand Night champions that you're trying to get ready for Autumn Oaks. Well, before we talk about those particular dogs, and how do you go about getting a dog ready for a big hunt?
We just hunt them. Try to get them in. They're all to hunt Autumn Oaks. They're already Grand Nights. They're already coon dogs, or should be.
Yes.
And we just work with them and get them in the best shape we can get them, and try to get their minds, just plumb right. We try to hold them different places, hunt them in different terrains, because you never know when you get to that hunt where you're going to be.
That's for sure.
And I do a lot of travel with them, hunt them in different things, hunt them in swamps, hunt them in down timber, hunt them, and we just try to do it all, trying to get them ready.
I'm so glad that you're on this podcast, Whitey, and you're saying some of these things, because these are the things that the young hunters need to learn if they're going to be successful. Unfortunately, I hear nowadays that, and it's been my experience too, going out to the hunts. Sometimes that weekend at the hunts, all that dog gets hunted by some of these fellas. They just go to a hunt every weekend. But, the old saying, it's not the will to win, it's the will to prepare to win, kind of really figures in to what you're saying. And, a dog is going to encounter all kinds of different situations every drop, isn't he?
He is, yeah. You probably heard of Clifford Dyer before, in the Buck Creek dogs.
Right.
The old Texas dog that he had was an outstanding hound. It was no doubt. But if I guided him, I could beat him, because that dog would not hunt around cattle. I mean, if there's cattle smell there, he wasn't going to do nothing. And I know that. And when I guided, I guess you might call it, might be cheating a little bit, but he was a fine hound. And
that's just strategy, Whitey.
Yeah, it's just. I try to get my hounds ready for any situation they'll be put in.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about in the historical dogs, but leading up to the ones you have now. What have been some of your favorite ones over the years?
Probably my favorite dog, Steve, was my tree singing queen dog. She was she was the type of hound, anywhere I took her, she was going to impress, and she hunted to suit me. She was good about having a coon. And right now, like I said, I've got these 3 females that's 3 years and younger. It's Grand Nights, and they've all got their strong points. And but they're all good about hunting, good by themselves, and got coons. And I'm really proud of these 3 that I'm hunting right now. Not because I've got them here, but they please. They try to please you every night.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, what ages of dogs do you have there?
Well, 2 of them is just 2-year-olds, Grand Nights. One of them just grand at 17 months old. My son called me. He called a female. He knowed I was looking for another female for my breeding programs. And he called me one night and said, "Dad, I found you a dog." And I said, "What are you telling Dad for? Won't you buy it?" Just kidding with him.
Yeah.
And he said, "Daddy, she's 3 coon in an hour," and had all 3 of them. And by herself, and big mouth. And so I said, "Well, see if you can buy her." And he said, "Yeah." He said he'd sell her. Well, make a long story short, it took me 2.5 months to get her bought. I got her. I had him bring her down here and hunt her, and she looked good in my country. And then we went up there when the snow was on in February, And she trailed a coon way through the country and come trading. Him and my son went to her and come back. And I said, "You have it?" And he said, "Yeah." And I bought her. She's off the Willie dog, and off the track lady, J.J. Jackson's. But I bought her on the 9th day of February, and she was just starting to bleed. So I had to lay her up for 3 weeks. And she had 4 wins toward night champion. I hunted her in 4 different states and 9 different clubs, and I grinded her 2 weeks ago.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
She's a coon dog.
You say she's off of Rackham Willie, and then is that a TrackMan female?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. J.J. Jackson, track lady female.
Right. Okay. Well, I got a project here out of TrackMan, a semen pup that I got from Randy Smith. But she hasn't done a whole lot yet, but she's making progress. Didn't start maybe as early as I thought she would, but she's coming along. Well, that's good. So, all right. So what do you call that female you just spoke of?
I call her Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam, yeah. Oh, brother. My boy grew up during that era of music, and he plays guitar, and man, did I ever hear Pearl Jam a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to take a little back step here just a minute, because you mentioned something that's always near and dear to my heart, and that's music. Tell me about your country music experience.
Well, I'm raised right here in the heart of, Ricky Skaggs and Keith Whitley and Patty Loveless and all of them. And I just loved the bluegrass music, and I got into it, and I got fortunate enough to have a band that we played a lot of places, played warm up for J.D. Crowe in the New South, when Keith was playing with him and the Country Gentlemen. And we played, we were awful successful, but it got to the point. Well, I'll just tell maybe I shouldn't say it, but I quit drinking in '86, and I had to get away from it, Steve, because it all went hand in hand. And,
I understand that. Yeah.
So that's when I left. That's when I left the bluegrass, and I still enjoy it. There's still 2 of us alive that picked in the band that I had. And,
now, what did you play? Instruments?
I play guitar.
Okay.
Guitar and did a lot of lead singing.
Yeah. Well, did you do any recording that's available anywhere that our listeners
not back then. We were just playing festivals and moving around a lot, and we all had jobs, and I never did. I've got a recording with my sister that she had an album made. She sings with the Glory Girls, and me and her does several funerals and stuff together now.
I see. And, yeah. Well, that's great. My dad was a fiddle player. Grew up, there in not far out of Nashville, and remembers the old Grand Ole Opry fiddler Arthur Smith was from his hometown. This is way back, old time fiddler stuff. But I had one of my first podcasts under the Gone to the Dogs label here. I had Trent Williams from Piketon, Ohio, who is a bluegrass musician, songwriter, singer, and all. He's not actively in that right now, but man, is he good. I just always, when I get a chance to talk to somebody about music, I try to pick their brain a little bit, because I enjoy it so much. And I've got a cousin in Nashville, actually in Dixon, Tennessee, that has a modern management company in Nashville and managed Diamond Rio, Josh Turner, Kenny Rogers at one time, Sarah Evans, several acts like that. So, I really enjoy the music aspect, and it's a lot of fun. But I do, that what a tragedy, Keith Whitley. I think he had the best country voice I ever heard.
Keith was amazing. He could sound like anybody. Of course, that's all he ever done. And I was working in Ohio, and I was around Keith quite a bit. And my son called me, and I called home every Thursday night, and he told me, he said, "Dad, Keith's dead." And he told me that. So I left work and come on home that weekend.
Yeah, that is a real tragedy. Well, my father was a pipe fitter and worked all up and down the Ohio Valley and was gone all during the week and home on weekends. So kind of relate to what you're talking about there for sure. All right, well, let's go back and talk about these Walker dogs you got. Okay, you got the Pearl Jam female. What else you hunting there?
I've got like I said, I've got a young female here that's just 2 that we call her Layla, and she's awful willy too, and I hardly ever got 2 females off the same dog. But I was trying to buy her and couldn't get her bought, and then this Pearl Jam come up, and I got her bought, and then this guy calls me and he said he decided to sell her. So I first said no, and then I said, well, I'd be a fool to say no, and it's a price he priced her to me, so I bought her. And then the other female that I have here, like I say, I got ZZ Top off of.
I love all these names, Layla. Got me on my knees, Layla. Yeah, Eric Clapton. Yeah.
Yep, that's how they're naming them dogs. And
yeah, that's cool.
And then I've got one that I call Jessie, and tree singing Jessie, and she's all my blood. And I went to Ohio it's been about 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, I guess it was. This pup was 10 months old, and the boy went with me up there to hunt, and he'd only started this dog about 2 weeks before. And this dog, in a week's time, she was only on the tree with another dog twice, the dog that I had. And the little dog had a coon every time after being hunted 2 weeks. But make a long story short, it cost me some money, but I had her by the time I got home.
Is that the way you approach this thing? If you see a dog, well, you're going to hang in there with them till you get them bought? Is that pretty much your attitude, or what?
If it catches my eye, Stephen, I can get them bought. I buy them from. But when I granted Pearl Jam a couple of weeks ago, I told them, at my age, having these 3 females as grand nights and loving to raise pups like I do and just hunting the bigger hunts, that was my last one. And unless tragically, I lose all of them or something. So
right,
I should be pretty well set for the next 2 years.
Yeah. Well, I've always thought that that's wise to keep good females. Then you have, you can select any stud dog out there you want to breed to. If you've got the female that you're satisfied with and they're what you want, there's any of those stud dogs would be more than welcome to have you breed to them. And I just think that's a smart way to go.
Yep. Like I say, all 3 of these females are off proven not proven crosses. Let me rephrase this. They're out of the family, the whole litter, both. And that's something I really, like I emphasized before, that's something I really look hard at. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I've got the 2 stud dogs here, and
okay,
but they're both, both of them getting agey, and they're my last ones. On the stud dog bar, I still got Dan. He's been on reproducing the list now for several years, in top 5. And then our rider dog, which is off of a litter mate to Dan, and Mark Miller's old dreamer dog.
Right.
He's 8, and he's moved up to number 6 now on the reproducing list. So
well,
we do our homework.
Right. Well, those dogs then go back to the hardwood bean dog and so forth, right? Is that what?
Right. That's how I met Mark.
Okay.
I seen Mark at Autumn Oaks, and I just liked the way the dog was built and mouth that everybody said he had, and so I bred a sister to Dan. I had her here. I had 3 of the. I had Pistolani and I had 3 of them females here, or 2 of them females here out of Dan that I'd purchased, or litter mates to him that I'd purchased. And I took one of them down there and crossed, and it'd been a real cross.
So you're still breeding the Dan dog?
Yeah, he's 11. He'll be 12 in January, and I just got through, like I said, I've got a litter down here 4 weeks old, and they were 10 in that litter. I bred it to the Lila female that I bought. And
so, Dan, now let's recap, go back over that. Dan is sired by what?
Dan, he's off of Mike Walsh's Roadhog dog.
Right. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, Mike has been. I've studied Mike's breeding, and
that was the Sackett Junior dog, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, he come back to Old Mountain Steel and all of them.
Yeah. Okay.
I trained and all that blood, and he. How I got Dan, he was off a female, but he was a granddaughter of a female that I'd sold a guy an old rat tat dog, and I dogged that dog 4 times, hunting good females after him. And that dog beat me every time within the last 5 or 10 minutes of the hunt. He'd be off somewhere and have a coon by himself and beat me. And I told Greg then, I said, Greg, I don't know if I can afford him, but if you ever sell that dog, I'd like to have the opportunity to buy him. And he granted him, and about 2 weeks later, on a Sunday morning, he called me. He said he lived up in the mountain back ahead of nowhere up in Neon, Kentucky. And he said, I can't promote this dog, Whitey. He needs to be promoted. And that's how I ended up with Dan.
I see. Yeah. Well, are you about promoting a stud dog nowadays? I think things have changed. You know, of course, I was involved in the magazines quite heavily for many years with, at my years at UKC with Coonhound Bloodlines, and then with PKC with the Pro Hound. And then, I've written many articles for American Coon or a few for Full Cry. It used to be that you advertised the dog in a magazine and, your phone would start ringing off the hook, especially if the dog had a good pedigree or had, had won a major hunt like a World Hunt or Autumn Oaks or whatever. How does a guy go about promoting a stud dog today?
It's all changed. It's all went to the computers. I run ads. You probably seen my ads for years there on Rat Tat, and then I run them on Dan for a while, and then it got so that your response on the magazine just wasn't there. Everybody would see you on the UKC site, and so that's the way I kind of trended to. But it's changed a lot, Steve, in the last few years. Like you say, a lot of people, you win the world hunt, if any of his litter mates never won a hunt in their life, or if he hadn't won nothing real big, he wins the world hunt, he's the hottest thing out there.
Oh, yeah.
For a while.
Mm-hmm.
For a while.
Yeah.
But it's just a rat race anymore. And there's a lot of good stud dogs out there, and just about everybody, a lot of people anymore with the performance and the super stakes, they're breeding their own dogs, in which you can't blame them for that. And
that became
changed a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And that became evident to me, and I may have mentioned it recently. If I look in Pro Hound magazine and I look at the leaderboards, the male leaders, female leaders, pup leaders, and you look down through that list and you don't see the same dog appearing more than maybe once or twice as the sire of those dogs. There are 24 dogs in each list, and the Power Pack dog may have 2 or 3. The Neosha Cuz dog may have 2 or 3, maybe a Big Money or something like that. But the rest of those dogs are just sired by all different studs. All the rest of them, only have the one dog on the list. So that tells me that I think maybe that occurred for a large part when PKC made it possible for you to super stake just a single litter of dogs, where you didn't have to pay up the dog at the first of the year for the full year. Do you think that had anything to do with it?
I do, 100%. Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. And like I say, if he's got the sire and the dam there, if he owns a female and he breeds his dog to it and happens to win one of those big hunts, he's got all the benefits, and that's where a lot of people's trending.
Yeah, I see that for sure. Well, what have some of your dogs, have you had any pups out of these either of these females yet, or have you bred them already?
Well, I bred Jessie, and those pups are 4 months old. I had one here I was going to keep until I decided that Pearl Jam was the last one I was going to campaign, so I sold it to a gentleman in Mississippi this past week. Mm-hmm. And then this litter I've got here out of Layla, she's they're just 4 weeks old. And Pearl Jam, I've got her qualified for the Tournament of Champions, the World Hunt, Walker Days next year. I'm going to hunt her in Autumn Oaks. I will probably hold off on her, Steve, and hunt her before on all those before I do, because I really enjoy hunting her. She gives you 110%, and she's just enjoyable for me to hunt.
Describe her. What does she look like?
She's beautiful. She's a beautiful female. She's blanket back and got just a slight blaze in her face, like a pencil. And she's got an outstanding mouth.
There you go.
Just a unique, outstanding mouth, which an old man like me needs that.
Yeah, that's true. I do. Yeah. Got it. Well, I don't want to give away all your trade secrets there. These guys might be drawing you. But sounds like you're proud of her, and I know that's probably all the endorsement she needs, because you certainly have the experience, Whitey. So looking down the road, let's talk about this coon hunting sport just a little bit. You and I have been around it for quite a while now. I started, back when I was a teenager. I was born in 1946. And as soon as I was able, I started pestering my dad to take me around to the night hunts over in Virginia and up in eastern Ohio and places, because I couldn't drive yet. And so I've always had an interest in competition and all that. But I see the sport changing so much, and we talked just a little bit about the type of dogs that have changed. But I see a lot of change in the attitude of the hunters too. Whether it's from their attitude toward getting a dog ready and hunting a dog and what it takes. It just seems like, and I guess maybe this is just an old man being critical, but there's a whole lot more smack talking out there on the internet and other around the hunts than there is actually dog talk and dog training and dog men exchanging ideas. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I don't want to step on no toes.
I understand.
Yeah, I see a whole lot of it. It's there just seems like there's so much jealousy and everybody just they've got these money hunts, which is a good thing if that's your cup of tea. Right. But they've got these money hunts, they're investing so much in these dogs. And I don't know about you, Steve, but I've even seen a lot of people that's buying these dogs is giving outrageous prices for them.
Oh yeah,
that's not even coon hunters, and then they'll put a big name handler underneath it and pay him big money, and it's just a gamble. And I know I can't afford that myself, but like you say, it seems like more people try to put more people down anymore, and that's not the way it should be.
It really isn't. Now, we know back in the day, and of course you mentioned, when we kind of talk about the big three, Joe House, Jim Merchant, and John Monroe in the Walker breed, and there were a lot of others that were very influential. You mentioned Jim Mathis and, the Carolina Casey dog, H.T. Derrickson there in Kentucky, different ones, down through, so many of them really, but you kind of think about those guys, Monroe, Merchant, and House back in the day, or at least for me. And they were competitive, but they really didn't take ads out slamming the other, And I think it's gotten so easy on the internet, to hide behind a keyboard and say a lot of things that probably a person wouldn't say to someone if they had to, look them in the eye and say that. And I just wish the younger fellows would get past that. I wish they would get to understand the sport for what it is. It's supposed to be enjoyment. It's supposed to be entertainment. And for a lot of us, it becomes a lifestyle and a life's work, that means an awful lot to us. I don't know what I would have done down through the years without coon hunting. Do you?
No, we were talking about the sportsmanship and stuff, and of all the awards that I have got down through the years, through the Walker Association, I sit there after I had left the Walker Association, being a hunt director. I'd left it 2 or 3 years before that, and Alan gets up here and he gets talking about this guy. I hunted with him. He was always a good sport. He's always carrying on and treating everybody fair. And I thought to myself, this is a pretty good fella he's talking about. And when he said my name, I about fell over. And
really, that's great. That's great. Gotcha.
That is the greatest. That is the greatest sport I've ever got. It was a sportsmanship award. To me, that's one I treasure more than any of them.
Well, Whitey, I know this is not like a mutual admiration society here today, but I've done another podcast today, and my voice is about to go. But, that for me, too, I was in the military going through my training in Texas when Plot Days rolled around, and the president of the Plot Association had contacted my parents and told them that they were going to award me a Sportsman of the Year award. And I knew nothing about this at all. And my parents didn't say anything about it to me either. But they went to Plot Days, and I don't remember exactly where that Plot Days was held, but they accepted that award on my behalf. And that was one of my proudest moments in the sport of coon hunting. I guess people don't understand how that can be so rewarding, to be recognized by your peers as being a straight up guy, that just tried to be good, be nice to people, be straight, be fair. A lot of pride in that for me, and I know it is for you too. Now, was that the Laverne Miller Award that you received, or was it?
Yes, it was.
That's awesome. Well, I just mentioned on a prior podcast that's going to air the week before this one does, Alan Gingrich had contacted me about a comment I'd made about a guy up in Columbia City, Indiana, named Mike Coulter, and I had erroneously I mispronounced his name. I had called him Mike Copeland, but anyway, Alan was talking about how this Mike was so humbled when he received the Laverne Miller Award. And our listeners out there that may not know who Laverne Miller was, he was a very active member of the Treeing Walker breeders and fanciers in the early days, a real competitor with some real good Walker dogs. But everybody that ever spoke about that man had nothing but good to say about him. And what a legacy that is, to be able to leave for our families, our children, our friends, to say, we really miss Whitey, or we miss Mike, because he was a good guy. He was a good guy to be around. So I don't know. I get sentimental about things like that sometimes. Well, Whitey, I want to talk to you about your work that you're doing now with the veterans and with the motorcycles and all that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm ride captain for northeastern Kentucky with the Patriot Guards, and it keeps us busy. I've got a mission tomorrow, which I told you when we talked, and we honor any veteran, whether he's a private or he was a colonel or whatever. We treat everybody the same, and we're there for the families. We gather, and when we're invited, we have to be invited. We don't intrude on anybody's funerals or anything. If we're invited, it's all voluntary, and we've got several good patriots in this area that comes out. We've usually got at least 10 or 12, and sometimes a lot more that comes, and we guard the casket if that's what the family wants, and then we do a final salute, and then we escort them to the cemetery where they'll be buried. And it's a great honor for me to be recognized as a ride captain in Kentucky for this. And to me, I'm still serving my brothers. And
absolutely, absolutely. And if anybody who's ever viewed those caravan or whatever the word is of motorcycles escorting someone to their final resting place, it's very, very moving. I know when my father died and then my uncle died, I remember the military funeral, and I've been to several over the years, and how moving those are. But that's a great thing that you guys do. So you just organize from a group of bikers from your general area, or does someone have to join a club, or how does that work?
No, we're not a club. We don't have no clubhouses or nothing. We're not a motorcycle club at all, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
We are just patriots and you don't have to be a motorcycle rider. We've got people that's with us, men and women that drives vehicles. They'll fly the flags off their vehicles, and we fly our flags from the motorcycle, the ones that does ride motorcycles. And but it's just I live in a great area of patriots. I mean, I can't say enough. The main guy, Vietnam vet, raised up right above the road here from me. I lost him about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Uh-huh. Probably the best friend I've had in the world. And I lost him, and we put the word out. He had done so much. He'd done about 3,000 funerals.
Wow.
And I put the word out. We had him come from Louisville, Charleston, West Virginia, up in Ohio, but we had 91 bikes at his funeral.
That's awesome.
And the town put the fire trucks up and had the big flag hanging for us to go under, and it's just
that's terrific.
An honor.
It is an honor when we can pay tribute to patriots. This country was built on the blood and sacrifice of the patriots. And man, you won't find a guy that appreciates that any more than I do. I'm just all about that, and I really congratulate you for the work you're doing that way, and for your service and all that goes with that, Whitey. It's a great thing. Well, kind of at 70 years old, what are your plans for the future in this old sport of coon hunting?
Well, I hope to keep our breeding program, keeping it up, and like I said, I want to get the major hunts and with the dogs I have now, and just try to keep the thing going here that we've strive to do, and try to treat everybody fair, and I've had several people buy as many as 5 or 6 pups off me over the years, and to me that's an honor. So it seems like I'm trying to do something right. So
absolutely, that repeats.
I just
go ahead.
Strive to keep that going.
Yeah. Well, I certainly wish you the best in that regard, for sure. And I would say if a person wanted to get a nice Walker pup that's got some planning behind it, and the bloodline, the experience, and I'm sure the temperament on these hounds. We didn't talk about that too much, but are they fairly easy trained? I mean, are they intelligent?
Yeah, they're. There's my kennel just right down from me now, and you don't hear a dog barking or nothing. I mean, they're level-headed, and that's something I look at too. If a dog wild and crazy, I can't train them. And
right.
My dogs are level-headed, and that's what I strive for, and that's what I try to do in my breeding program. I watch for what they got between the ears.
Well, let's talk about a little bit about what you like, and then we've been at this for an hour and 5 minutes already, Whitey. It's hard to believe that we've talked that long. But what kind of feed do you use?
I'm feeding Purina, and
okay.
I'm having good luck with it, and don't see no reason to change. I've ventured away from it at times, like everybody else, and and I come back to it and seem like I have good results with it. I don't seem like they've been at it, they've been in business longer enough. They know what they're doing.
Well, that's it, and I've said that on this podcast, and I do too. That's what I feed, and I have fed for many years. Ever since I went to that first Purina Award banquet out in St. Louis and went to the farm and saw how much research and development and money that they put into it, I thought, well, if they're not building the best, they sure are spending a lot of money for nothing. But, yeah, well, what kind of lights you like to wear?
I've still got an old, I hunted with crystal lights for forever. And,
Kenny St. John.
Yeah, we lost Kenny back in the winter. And,
yeah.
I've been going up since 1986 and hunting the first week of season with Kenny.
Oh, wow.
But the last couple of years, I knowed he was failing, and Kevin Walker called me back, and he called me the day that he was over there, and he told me we lost Kenny. And
the man in the fedora hat. I met Kenny years and years ago. When he was selling a dog feed. What was that brand of feed? Crystal
dog feed. I fed
right.
it. Mm-hmm. As long as Kenny made it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he got into the lights and all that. And I always had a good visit everywhere with Kenny. If it was Automox or it was at Grand American or wherever. And, man, it's tough, Whitey, when you go to the hunts and you don't see these people anymore. I know you've seen a lot of it, and I've seen more than my share that's gone that I hunted with over the years. They're just not here no more. They're gone. Right.
And,
right.
I guess we're blessed, Steve, to still be on Earth and still enjoy doing what we're doing.
Well, we certainly are, Whitey, and that's they say birds of a feather flock together. I wanted to talk to you for a long time, and I'm sure glad that we took this opportunity today to visit for a while, and I want to keep that up. Your friend Mark Miller there, he and I talk just about every day. I asked him, I don't know if you heard me on the podcast, ask him what you said when you found out he was fooling with a plot. But I hope that we'll be able to stay in touch, and I'll look you up at Automox, and hopefully you'll be in that top 16 by the time I get there. And
I hope I am too, brother.
Yeah. Well, Whitey, is there anything that we should have talked about that we didn't, or you thought maybe I'd cover and I didn't ask you?
No, I think you've done a great job, Steve. Great job.
Well, Whitey, thank you so much for coming on with me today, and I certainly wish you the very best and be praying for you as you continue your work with the veterans. I know that's so appreciated by the families of these patriots, and Godspeed in that direction, fella, and good luck with your walker dogs, and we'll be looking for you on the internet and in the magazines, and you just have a great year, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right, call anytime, brother. Enjoy talking to you.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap on our Gone to the Dogs podcast for today. Really great visit with Whitey Marshall, and just an example of the kind of quality individuals we try to bring on this podcast on a regular basis. If anybody asks you where's Steve Fielder, tell them he's gone to the dogs.